Day arrived decades after Mother's Day. When it came, it was mocked, resisted as sentimental and unnecessary. There is something strange about that. The role, we are told, sits at the top of the hierarchy, was the last to be formally recognised in celebration. Mother's Day arrived first because something had been overlooked. Father's Day arrived later because nothing had been overlooked. It was just assumed. Much the way you don't throw a party for gravity. And we should be clear about what that assumption is. Because we throw the word patriarchy around as if it means men behaving badly, and it does not. The word literally means rule of the father, and underneath it sits a deeper claim about origin, not about men, as who counts as the beginning, who becomes the line through which name, property and legitimacy descend. Which is why, as Bell Hooks observed, patriarchy has no gender. A woman can enforce it. A household with no father in it can still run on it. It outlives individual men because it was never really about men. It was about the position, and positions leave records. The most patriarchal object in your life is not a law or an institution. It is the surname on your birth certificate. Look how strange it is once you actually see it. It was written there before you could speak, and yet you answer to it every day. You sign it, you build a reputation on it, defend it, pass it on, answer to it every day, or wrestle with whether to. And the wrestling matters because if it were neutral, nobody would wrestle with it. Decades after legal equality, people still debate whether to keep it, change it, hyphenate it, or surrender it. The tension itself is evidence. The father's line descends through the name. The mother's often disappears within a generation. Nobody gathers in a room and votes for that outcome. It simply arrives looking like the natural order of things. That is what power looks like when it has been around long enough. Not force, inheritance. Not command, assumption. And once you notice how a name travels, another question appears. Who decides when something becomes real? 2 days ago, the calendar marked Juneteenth. Most people know the headline. Fewer know the gap. Freedom had already been declared 2.5 years earlier. The law had changed. The people it affected had not been told. In Texas, people continued to labour under slavery because the announcement hadn't reached them. And that delay wasn't simply administrative. Slaveholders moved west because they knew the gap existed. The delay became a profit window. 2 more harvests, 2 more years of labour extracted from people who were already legally free. The law and lived reality sat side by side, and someone made money in the distance between them. That is what makes Juneteenth so unsettling. It's that freedom arrived, but it had arrived late. The delay itself became useful. The same question appears again tomorrow. Windrush is usually told as a story of arrival, but arrival was never the most interesting part. The people who stepped off HMT Empire Windrush were not immigrants in the way the story is often told. They were British citizens. They carried British passports. They had been invited to help rebuild Britain after the war. They built hospitals, transport systems, and public services that underpin the foundation of Britain today. And then decades later, many were asked to prove that they belonged. The state demanded documents. The problem was that the state had destroyed many of them. The Home Office shredded landing cards that recorded arrival, then demanded proof of arrival from the very people whose records it had removed. The keeper of the record created the absence and then treated the absence as evidence. That's an extraordinary thing when you stop and look at it. The same country that celebrated Windrush contributions could also threaten deportation. The statue in Waterloo and the deportation letter came from the same address. Being celebrated is not the same as being safe. Now, place the three stories beside one another. A surname, a delayed emancipation, a destroyed landing card. Different objects, different histories, the same question. Who gets to decide what counts? Who gets recorded as the origin? Who gets recorded as belonging? Who gets recorded as free? And who gets to make those decisions after the fact? That is the part we miss. What happened is only half of the argument. The second half is about who gets to define what happened afterwards. Who gets to keep the record? Who gets to amend it? Who gets to inherit it? Which is where this stops being history, because there is a record being kept of your life too. The organisation that will keep your thinking and lose your name. The institution that benefits from your contribution and forgets your authorship. The family story that remembers some people as builders and others as support staff. If you're not writing your own entry, someone else is writing it for you. And they will not necessarily carry forward the parts of you that mattered the most. They will carry forward the parts that were the most useful to them. That is why this isn't really an essay about Father's Day or Juneteenth or the Windrush. This is about authorship, about who gets to write the record and whether you inherit every line as given or refuse to treat it as the record when you take it back.